I'm so looking forward to chatting through all of the books that I read in September and also my autumn TBR. I feel like with my September wrap up, I feel like I've read quite a few really good books in the past month that I'm really excited to share with you. And I'm also really keen to see whether you've read any books that I'm planning on reading in October, because I always feel like autumn time in particular, I mean I love reading all year round, but I feel like autumn time in particular is just such a lovely cozy time to sit down with a cup of tea and a book. So I really enjoyed picking my October TBR. I'm very excited to share those with you. But first, let's start with all of the books that I read in September. The first book I have lent out, so I don't have it with me, but I started the month by reading The Lamplighters Bookshop by Sophie Austen. And I'd never really read a book like this before. It follows our main character Evelyn and her mother, and essentially one way or another they find themselves evicted from their home. They once had quite a bit of money but now they do not, so they find themselves in a position where they're really having to rebuild their life, and to do that they move from the countryside into the city. And Evelyn is really looking to rebuild her own life personally as well, so she decides to get a job at a bookshop. It's quite a neglected shop, but she really feels like she can make a difference there. And the book really explores themes of new beginnings. There's also themes of family secrets and family dynamics. There's also a bit of romance in there. And the book is set in the 1800s in York. And what I would say about this book is if you're looking for a really easy, lovely, cozy read, which I think is actually perfect for this time of year, that's also a book that's set in a world very similar to that of Little Women, obviously in a slightly different way because it's set in a different place with a different context and backdrop, but it's very much set in a similar world in terms of the rules within their society and their social lives. That sounds very vague, but I feel like if you've seen Little Women you'll know what I mean. So if you're looking for a book like that, then I think this one would be a perfect fit for you. It really combines that coziness with that kind of similar world. I also really loved that this book was set in York. It's a city that I know very well. The city really almost felt like a character in itself within the book, which I really enjoyed. It was a really great backdrop to the whole plot, and it was also, as a location, discussed quite a lot, so if you're also familiar with the area, I think you'd find it quite a fun read. I know I did, being able to recognise the street names and the places that they discussed, and also imagining a city that I know so well in a time that I wouldn't have known it was really interesting to me. I just quite enjoyed that. I would say it's definitely a slower paced book. It really kind of leans into the coziness of things, so it's not necessarily really fast paced and a real page turner, but it's definitely a lovely easy read. It was really a good bridge between summer and autumn, which I really enjoyed, and I rated this book 3 stars. Now I do have this next book, so I'll put my cup of tea down for this one so that I can hold the book. The next book that I read was The Couple Next Door by Shari LaPena. This is a book that I think I mentioned in maybe my autumn TBR or in a previous video that I have been wanting to read for literally years. I remember seeing it on Sophia Tuxford's Instagram, and for some reason it really stuck out to me as a book that I wanted to read, and I don't know why, but I haven't got round to reading it until now. So this book follows a couple, Anne and Marco. They go next door for a dinner party that they've been invited to by the couple who live there, and when they go to this dinner party they leave their 6-month-old daughter next door, and they're checking in on her, and the final time that they come home they realise that the baby is not there. She's nowhere to be seen, and this is very much a starting point for a lot of unravelling, whether it's unravelling in the couple's personal life or the unravelling of course where their daughter is and solving that mystery. There's a lot revealed and, as I say, unravelled from that starting point. And I really enjoyed how this book started. It felt like right from those first couple of chapters it really had my attention because the pace was really quick, and because we entered that very tense situation where time was really important. It was really key for the couple to, as quickly as possible, find out what had happened to their daughter. Because there was that time pressure to it, it just felt very gripping at the beginning. I also felt like this book did a really good job of making me suspicious suspicious of every character, and particularly of each of the characters' intentions or what secrets they might be hiding from the rest of the characters in the book. It just felt like every character at some point was suspicious. I would say that in the second half of the book, I didn't necessarily have that same feeling of tension as I was reading it. I think the first couple of chapters just really gripped me, and for some reason I didn't necessarily feel that same feeling of being really gripped in the second half. I still really enjoyed it. Having said that, it was very readable and I was very interested in what was going to happen. But yeah, in the second half I didn't necessarily feel that same tension. But it is one, especially if you're looking to get into the thriller genre, I think this would be a really good one to start with. It was also our book club pick of the month, so I really enjoyed hearing your thoughts on it and seeing what you thought about this book, and I rated this book 3 stars. Next up was a book that I was so excited to read. It is Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the second book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and the first book, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, was my first ever 6-star read. I absolutely loved so many things about that book, so I was very excited to pick this one up. In this book we essentially follow pretty much straight on from the events of book 1. We really see the aftermath of the things that happened in book 1 and of the outcomes of book 1, but we also then look at where our main character Pip is now. So we find her as she started a podcast that has been very successful, all about the events of book 1 and the investigation that she did there. And as that is kind of going viral, a new case becomes apparent. A person that Pip knows is now missing, and even though she's very much said her investigating days are done, she decides to help the family when they ask her and try and figure out what has happened. So we're essentially following Pip as she goes into a new investigation. And what I would say is that the second book in this series did not disappoint. I absolutely loved it. I feel like Pip as a main character is such a good one to follow. I love the way that she goes about an investigation. It's really engaging. I like the way that she pieces together information. I just feel like she's a really good main character. Oh, I've just realised I've had this book the wrong way around. An aspect of this book that I really did enjoy was the fact that we did find out what happened after the events of book 1. So whether that is following the trial that was going on or following Pip's podcast, it was really interesting to see what happened next in the case that we followed in book 1. I liked that whilst we did focus on the new investigation obviously, and that was a real main part of the book, we also saw what happened after book 1. I really liked that. It felt like very much a continuation from book 1, which I really enjoyed. I also found the new case really interesting. I liked the way that it unravelled, and there were definitely a good couple of twists and turns that I really didn't see coming. It was very much a gripping read. And also, as I mentioned with book 1, and it is no different with book 2, this series officially has the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. I would recommend this audiobook series as well as the book series to anyone. It is so engaging. I said it about the first book, and it's the same with the second, that it feels like a TV show is happening when you're listening to it. It really is a brilliant production, and it works so well because of the different writing elements that are in this book. So there's transcripts from the podcast, there's also interview transcripts, there's phone calls, there's text messages, there's news articles. There are so many different elements throughout this book, and all of those different elements really lend themselves to having a brilliant audiobook because they all have a slightly different sound or a slightly different production element to them. So it's just such an engaging read. Also, if you're looking to try out immersive reading, which is something I do with most books that I read, I absolutely love immersive reading. For those of you who don't know, it's essentially when you listen to the audiobook at the the same time as reading the physical copy. I absolutely love it. If you're looking to try that out, I think this series in general would be a really good series to try that with. So I definitely really enjoyed this book. I rated it 4 stars and I'm very excited to read the third and final book in this series. And the final book that I read in September is Nightshade by Autumn Woods. This book came highly recommended by my friend Liza. I was so excited to read it because actually A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was also her recommendation. I feel like we have a very similar taste in books, and so I just feel like when she gives me a recommendation I know it's going to be a book that I will enjoy. So I was very excited to read this one. It was a 6-star read from her, so I was really keen to give it a go. This book follows our main character Ophelia Winters. She accepts a scholarship to a university in Scotland and she essentially accepts it and enrolls in the university in order to uncover the truth behind her parents' death. Her parents died at the university. While she's there, she meets Alex, and he is the son of essentially her prime suspect in the case, and we follow how their dynamic shifts and changes throughout the book. And I feel like there's quite a bit to say about this book. The first thing is the pacing, which is always something that's actually really important to me when I'm reading a book, the pace of it. I quite like a fast-paced book, and I really love a book that really feels like it's moving forwards from chapter to chapter. At the moment, that's the kind of book that I'm really into reading, and I felt like that the pacing in this book was really consistently good throughout. I felt like I really learned something new in each chapter. That kind of pacing just really hooked me in. Also, I absolutely loved the characters in this book. All of the characters were really interesting characters, and I feel like because the characters were written so well, it really made me feel like this would be a really good TV show, alongside the plot and the pacing and everything else. But I can really just see and imagine the characters so vividly in my head, and I feel like they would be brilliant characters to watch on screen. So fingers crossed this becomes a TV show or a movie, because I feel like it would be brilliant. I particularly liked the dynamic of our 2 main characters, Ophelia and Alex. They had such a good dynamic, and their dynamic was also a really interesting one to follow, because obviously so much of their dynamic was affected by what happened with her parents, and it was really interesting to see how that impacted their dynamic and how that altered different parts of their relationship. I feel like this book did a really good job of kind of weaving all of that together. I do think my favourite thing about this book was the fact that it explored several genres, mainly mystery and romance. I felt like there was a real perfect balance between the genres that were explored, and also because there were several genres and themes throughout, it really felt like the book was really packed with plot. That just made it a real page turner. So I rated this book 4.5 stars, and it is the first book in a duology, and I cannot wait to read the second book in this series, especially after the ending of book 1. I won't say any more than that, of course, but it's made me really want to know what happened next. Now it's time to chat through my October TBR. I spent quite a lot of my evening last night figuring out what books I wanted to read before the end of the year. I was doing a post about it on TikTok, and I have had a few books that I've really wanted to read, but also I was having a look around for other books that I might like to read before the end of the year, and I was doing that for such a long time. I was getting really excited about all of the books that I want to read, and also trying to whittle it down to the ones that I want to read before the end of the year. But yeah, it's actually been a really helpful thing to do, because I have now been able to take a few books from that for my October TBR, so it was perfect. I feel like I've got a real variety of genres in my TBR. We've also got our book club pick for the month to chat about, which I'm really excited about. So let's get started with the October cozy season TBR. First up is a book that I have just started, which is Frankie by Graham Norton. This book follows our main character Frankie. She is currently in her 80s and she lives in a small Irish town. She's being cared for by her carer Damien. Through their dynamic we hear the story of Frankie's life. So it very much, from what I understand, flicks between modern day and then goes back in time to Frankie's life, and we follow her in post-war Ireland England in the 60s in New York. And this one, from what I understand, is about relationships, self-discovery, secrets. We're essentially looking at someone's lifetime. And I'm literally only a chapter in, so I can't say too much about how I'm finding it so far. I have read a Graham Norton book before. It was called A Keeper. I think it's somewhere on this shelf actually. And I absolutely loved that book. His writing was brilliant. I think it was at a time before I started kind of giving a book a rating, but it would definitely be a 5-star read, if not a 6-star. I just loved that book so much. And so I'm really interested to see Graham Norton's writing with a different genre that isn't a thriller. I just feel like I'm going to love it the same because I really like his writing. And I'm just interested to see how his writing style might differ slightly, or how he goes about writing a book that isn't a mystery or a thriller. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Next up, let's talk about our book club pick, which I'm so excited about. For those of you who might not know, we choose a book each month to read together. We have a Fable book club, which is always linked down below, where we chat throughout the month about how we're finding the book from chapter to chapter, or we share our reviews at the end. It's a really nice space and I really enjoy hearing your reviews. I also, of course, chat about it as I'm reading it over on TikTok and Instagram, and I'll often chat about it on here as well. So it's essentially just a book we pick each month to read together. And this month we have picked Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, which feels perfect for this time of year. It's a book that I have been seeing on TikTok and online and been wanting to read for a little while now. So I'm very excited that this is the one that we voted for. This book follows our main character Belladonna, who is a witch, but she is kind of hiding her powers. She is working in a bookshop in London. She's kind of at a point in her life where she's feeling quite burnt out. So her focus is very much not on her magic and perfecting her magic. But then on her 30th birthday, her coven summons her and she has to be a part of trials, which basically means that she's risking losing her magic forever, because these trials are all about proving her worthiness as a witch. From what I understand and from what I have kind of read whilst trying to avoid any spoilers, it's a very cozy read. It has humour to it, it's quite heartwarming. Those are the vibes that I'm getting from what I have kind of read a little bit about so far, and I can't wait to read this one together. Next up we have Don't Be in Love by Liana Cincotti. I read Liana Cincotti's other book, Picking Daisies on Sundays, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the structure of it, I loved how it was written, I loved so much about it, and since then I've been really keen to read her other book, Don't Be in Love. This book follows our main character, who is 20, I believe. She is a marketing student and she's just transferred to a London university. She's quite excited by the idea of a fresh start, and then she meets Dorian, who she realises that she has quite a connection with, but she knows that her roommate has feelings for him. So Dorian and our main character Adelaide basically have a secret agreement to not tell anyone about their feelings for each other. It sounds like a very gripping book. It also sounds like it explores lots of different themes, so whether that's her journey, Adelaide's journey of this fresh start and making new friends and being in a new city and a new place, or themes of friendship and secrets. I feel like there's just a lot that is going to be discussed in this book and I can't wait for it. I also really enjoy following Liana Cincotti on TikTok and on Instagram. I feel like she's a really nice person to follow, so yeah, whenever she pops up on my feed I'm always like, yes, I need to read that other book, because I am a real fan of her and a fan of her writing. So I'm very excited to be getting around to reading that this month. My next choice for my October TBR is Society of Lies by Lauren Ling Brown. This is a book that I actually only came across last night while I was researching what I wanted to read. It's in Reese's book club, Reese Witherspoon's book club, so it came up when I was googling thrillers to read and I'm so excited about this one. I feel like I've said that for every book, but I just really am excited to read these ones. This book follows two sisters, Maya and Naomi, and it basically follows how their lives become entangled with this secret society. So there's a little bit of an age gap between the two sisters. Maya is returning back to the university for a 10-year reunion, just as Naomi is graduating from the university. And things take quite a dark turn when Naomi is found dead under suspicious circumstances, which basically leads to Maya trying to figure out what happened. And through her figuring this out, she uncovers secrets that Naomi hasn't shared with her, and it basically unravels a lot with real links to this secret society. It sounds really interesting. I don't think I've ever really read a book like this where it's kind of that secret society vibe, so I'm really intrigued to see how that plays out in a book. And again, as I've said, I'm excited to read this one, as I'm excited to read all these books. Another book that came up whilst I was researching books that I wanted to read is one that I'm very intrigued by. It is The Rose Code by Kate Quinn, and this book takes place across two different timelines. So we look at World War II, and then we also look a few years after World War II. So in the World War II timeline, we focus in on Bletchley Park. This was a secret British code-breaking centre within the war, and in this timeline we look at the dynamics and the lives of three women who work at Bletchley Park. And then in the post-war timeline in 1947, their friendships are now quite fractured, which I'm interested to know why that might be. From what I understand, one of the women, Beth, has uncovered some evidence of a traitor at Bletchley Park. She sends out a bit of a plea to the other two women to try and help her uncover what is going on and who the traitor is. And so they essentially come back together to do that. I really always enjoy a book that has two different timelines going on, even though they're only obviously a few years apart. I just really enjoy when we're flicking between two different timelines, and I always feel like each of the timelines is written in a way that reveals something about the other timeline. Always really enjoy books like that. I'm also really interested that this is set in Bletchley Park. I recently watched The Imitation Game, which is about Alan Turing, who worked at Bletchley Park. I think watching that is why this book is one that really caught my eye yesterday when I was looking for what I might like to read before the end of the year, because I really enjoyed that film, and so I'd be quite keen to read something else set around Bletchley Park. And even though this book is of course a historical fiction, I still like the idea of reading something that is set around a time that interests me and around events that interest me. So I think it'd be quite a fascinating read, and I'm really interested to see what it is like. And that is the last book on my October TBR. I can't believe we're already going into October. I feel like I was just having a think about my September TBR and now we're heading into a new month. But I'm very excited to read all of the books that I've mentioned this month. As we know, I've said that quite a bit throughout today's video. I would love to know what you're planning on reading in October. Do join us over on Fable, where we're reading Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. And thank you so much for joining me today. It's been lovely to chat with you, and I will chat to you again very soon. Bye!